Hold up in that car wash, gentlemen.
Rob Kibbe.
Don't tell me. You're from outer space.
No, I'm from Iowa. I only work in outer space.
Mike Finnegan.
Go that way, really fast. If something gets in your way, turn.
Two guys talking cars.
I am a semi-professional race car driver and an amateur tattoo artist.
Taking on the most serious topics.
But we will give nothing back to the academic community, as well as provide no public service of any kind. This much I promise you.
And the Dukes of Hazzard. On iTunes, Stitcher, and whatever else it is you listen on. The Kibbe and Finnegan Show.
Kibbe and Finnegan Show, episode number 87. Available on all the platforms, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and themusclecarplace.com. Well, Mike is out this week. I'm not exactly sure what popped up, but something personal popped up yesterday. He just said, I got to push. So I am calling a little audible here to get a show out this week because, well, when your business is making shows that go out weekly, you got to put out weekly shows, right? But I totally get what it's like to look forward to something when you're expecting it, whether that's daily or weekly. So I don't want to let you down. I think I've come up with something pretty good. I did not have time to do any of the other things that I would normally do. So normally what I would do is sneak on like a corn dog deep dive, but I didn't have time to do that. Or go get a guest. And I have a guest list I've been working on, and I have some pretty good contacts in, but I can't turn it in like an hour. So here's what I did. I realized that I have put out all of our Dukes Cast shows and things like that, but I've never shared this. This is episode 254 of the Muscle Car Place. That is my main show. That's the show that I do every week. Done that since 2009. When I met Mike in 2015 on the Power Tour, he was just a fun guy to get to know, but I did not know him very well. I knew of Roadkill. I've seen some episodes, but I didn't know that super well either. But I just liked him. So I invited him on as a guest. This is that interview. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I've been in this business since 2009. Muscle Car Place itself has, I think, over 370 episodes. I've done a few hundred other shows outside of that for a lot of other ventures. I've been hired to do things. I usually remember the gist of discussions, but there's been too many. I can't clearly remember all of them. Maybe a dozen out of all the ones I've ever done stand out in my head. This was one of them. I'm not going to set it up any more than that. You will probably find the spot, though, in this discussion where it all clicks. It all clicks into place that Kibbe and Finnegan is going to have to happen. You know what? If you find it, why don't you tell me what you think it is? Because I know exactly where it is. Check it out. I think you're going to enjoy it. Now, for next week, we will be back with a normal Kibbe and Finnegan for you, unless something totally changes with Mike's schedule. We'll have a Dukes of Hazzard show review in it and everything. It's a good one. It's the $1 Million Sheriff episode. If I'm lucky, my General Lee's going to be out and about too. It's pretty much done now. I'm just waiting on a couple of parts to show up, but it's all totally buttoned up, ready together, ready to get out of Rodney's garage. It turns out, I have learned, that swapping a K member, adding in power steering, power brakes, headers, one-wire alternator, different steering column, different brake lines, doing this all in a car you're pretty unfamiliar with, and that you're trying to do a good job on so you're not redoing work later, and that's a Mopar where every freaking part doesn't match any other freaking part if you make one little change, is really hard, but I'm totally loving it. This isn't going to be the last Charger I do. I'm enjoying it too much. Here's a little trivia for you. Before I started the Muscle Car Place, here were the 3 other businesses I was considering. The first was called the Muscle Car Racing League, which is basically what the Optima Ultimate Street Car Series is now, so A for idea, F for execution, right? On my part. The Stunt Driving League. What was that going to be? Oh, well, trademark pending. Stunt Driving League it would be kind of like a combination of Formula Drift, but with the emphasis to do TV and movie stunts to hit a specific mark. So really, really specific driving maneuvers. And that's everything from sliding to drifting to jumping. It's probably unlikely you're going to have a lot of people that can do the 2-wheel stuff, but that would have all been in there. At first, that was going to be muscle car specific, but I kind of made it more generic just to make stunt driving. Again, trademark pending. The third was called General Lee Enterprises. I wanted to build General Lees for customers. And I'm not the first guy to think of this. There are a few people that have done this. I don't know if anybody's done it as a full-time venture, but that was one that I still wanted to do. Doing my car now has kind of rekindled that spark. So trademark pending, General Lee Enterprises. If you'll be at the SEMA show, be listening close here. We may do a live Kibbe and Finnegan from the SEMA show. If you're there, it would be awesome for people to come by and watch it happen. So I'll kind of keep you in the loop on that. There's only one time slot left that we can even book something. You can find this show, like I told you, in all the places. If you get it on iTunes, leave a rating. Ratings matter. Ratings help. If you're a Patreon supporter, thank you. That has been such a big help. You have no idea how big a help that has been. If you're not a Patreon supporter yet, you can be. Go to patreon.com/KFshow. Patreon is a place where people can literally be patrons and support us. There are some simple donation levels there. We put out a special once a month Patreon only show just for those listeners. We're thinking of even better, cooler ways to do stuff for them in 2019. It's appreciated. If you're supporting the show over there, it's really appreciated. What else can I tell you? You can buy a shirt. What a million other ways to try to schlep money, right? Also, Craig Elliott, one of our listeners out there, I want to thank you publicly. I have seen all your emails. I appreciate it. Craig is the guy, when he buys speed parts for his, I think it's a CUDA, right? He tells them about the Kibbe and Finnegan show. If he heard about something on this show, he lets them know specifically. QA1. He ordered some parts from QA1 just a couple days ago and let him know of how much he appreciated our show. So same thing with Mancini Racing. So do what Craig does. Tell the people that you're buying stuff from about our show. It works. It absolutely works. Also, if you're listening to this show, take a picture of it on Instagram, do a screenshot, and then throw it up on Instagram. That helps us too. More people that know, the more people that will listen, the more sponsors that will come, right? Okay, that's it. Plugs are over. Here is Mike on episode 254 of the Muscle Car Place. This might be where it all began. All right, thanks for listening. If you're a fan of the uber hit YouTube show, Roadkill, where he and Hot Rod's David Freiburger do just the craziest things in vehicles that sometimes make no sense, and it's the stuff we all would love to do someday ourselves. So today we're going to get a behind-the-scenes look at Mike's crazy life and have some fun. So let's get started. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
You're welcome. I'd never met you prior to Power Tour, and I think I'd met you like after Power Tour, and chatting with you a little bit, realized you're a totally normal dude. So I thought this would be a good time to see if you'd like to come on the show, and you said yes. So thank you for doing that. Yeah,
it was basically over. We were celebrating, essentially. A dinner for all the staff, or most of the staff that puts Power Tour on. So that was a pretty cool environment to be in, a whole lot of happy people that pulled off one hell of a show.
Yeah, and Power Tour, I mean, it's a joy, it's a treat, and it's a grind. There's a number of emotions when it's over. Relief is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you make it to the end, that feels pretty good. If you can keep your car running through those conditions all week, that's a pretty good feat. It really is.
Yeah. Well, tell you what, here's the first question. Everybody has to do this, and I don't know a lot of your backstory. So the first question is always kind of the sixth grade summer vacation. Like, who are you? Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And how'd you get into doing what you're doing? That type of thing. So who are you, Mike?
Who am I? Well, I'm Mike Finnegan. I was born and raised in Southern California. Moved a lot as a kid. My dad wasn't in the military, but he had a job that he constantly moved for. So I lived everywhere from Central California all the way down to Oceanside, which is near San Diego on the border there. I went to college in New York for a few years and hated that. So as soon as I graduated, I came back. So I spent most of my life in Southern California, where the good weather is.
What did you study?
Basic stuff. I was completing an associate's in arts degree because I wanted to go work for a magazine, and that was the quickest way to get there. So it was just a whole lot of photography courses and then, writing stuff. But yeah, I graduated with an AA, which is a 2-year degree that took me, I think, 5 years to get because I was screwing around with cars the whole time.
Okay. Then you came home.
Yeah. So, it's a long story, but yeah, as soon as I graduated, I packed everything I had onto a trailer behind a really old motorhome my parents gave me and took a crazy road trip from New York to L.A. and broke down the entire way home. I think we blew up every U-joint in the drive shaft of the motorhome because I was towing not a car trailer, but a heavy equipment trailer with my mini truck on the back, and so it was way overloaded, and we broke down so many times. We ran out of gas. I ran out of money. But with the help of some good friends, I made it to California on fumes and slept in that motorhome with my ex-girlfriend, I think for about probably a month, I think, in front of a buddy's house until I got my first job in publishing.
Which was what? Was that prior to hot rodding?
No, it wasn't hot rodding at all. I got my foot in the door at Mini Truckin' Magazine because at the time I was building mini trucks, and I had just finished one, and I had no business working in a magazine. I was fairly clueless, but they gave me the job because I drove in through the door with a mini truck. And they thought, well, if you can build them and you like them, we'll just we'll figure out how to make you write and take pictures.
Okay. And were you there for a long time?
I was at Mini Truckin' was owned by the company I work for now, or at least one incarnation of it. This company's been bought and sold so many times, so I've worked for it when it was Prime Media, McMullen Argus, EMAP, Source Centerlink, and now 10, the Enthusiast Network. Mini Truckin' was one of their titles. It doesn't exist anymore, but I started at Mini Truckin'. I moved to Off-Road Magazine after a few years, then actually left the company to be editor of Hot Boat Magazine, and then I came back to the company to be editor of Sport Truck Magazine, and then ultimately got laid off when they closed Sport Truck, when the economy went to hell, and then came back when Freiburger hired me at Hot Rod in 2009.
So everybody that I know that's in automotive media has a story very similar to that. It's a wild up and down ride, and usually it lands on something really good. Like it all works up to something. And for you, that was Hot Rod. And that's where you've been ever since. Is that correct?
Yeah, Hot Rod, I mean, that's the dream right there. That is the greatest magazine ever because you can hot rod anything. When I worked at the other magazines, say Mini Trucking, for instance, you just wrote about mini trucks, and they're pretty simple, and there's a formula there for building them. And eventually you get tired of writing about the same, truck with a different color, a different set of wheels. But at Hot Rod, I mean, God, Hot Rod has published articles about dune buggies, off-road racing, We've written about tanks. We've done so many interesting things because you can make anything fast and you can make anything cool. And so it all falls under that umbrella, which is awesome.
Okay, you mentioned tanks. So that leads into the next topic here, which is Roadkill. On Power Tour, one thing that it just blew me away, I was there with FM3, one of the production companies, assisting. And I answered this question several times. Where is Mike Finnegan? I would like his autograph. And sometimes it was adults and sometimes it was kids. And they all know you from Roadkill and they love it. So what is the story behind Roadkill? Was it always Roadkill? Was there something prior to that?
Roadkill was an accident, actually. Well, sort of an accident. When I went to work at Hot Rod for David Freiburger, one of the first things we did was go on a road trip together. And he had the bright idea to just bring somebody along with a video camera and film it. So we filmed it, and we came home, and we put it on YouTube on Hot Rod's channel, because Hot Rod Magazine had a channel there with some, really great videos that were pre-Roadkill. And right around that time, our company had struck a deal with YouTube to produce a channel. YouTube was, for a while, paying for content. I think there were like 60 channel partners, and we were one of them, and it became the Motor Trend channel because that was our company's largest brand. And so we got home from this road trip, and somebody said, okay, you guys, you have a show now. Hurry up and figure out a name for it and do this every month. And so all of a sudden we were like, oh, wow, all right, we'll call it Roadkill, because at the time Freiburger and I and the rest of the Hot Rod staff were working on a new magazine called Roadkill. And it was going to be an offshoot of Hot Rod that covered really outrageous cars. Were a little too extreme for the Hot Rod audience at the time. We ended up not launching the magazine because we stole the name for Roadkill. So that's where the name came from.
Okay.
And then once a month, we just, flew by the seat of our pants. We would find whatever 2 or 3 days free we had from our magazine schedule and then just took off on a road trip. And Hot Rod just kind of became whatever we could afford or had time to do or wanted to do in the beginning. There was no plan. There was no template. And because we only had a few days to make the show, we couldn't fake anything. If we broke down and we couldn't fix the car, or we attempted to drive to Alaska and make it, that's what aired, because there was no time to go back and redo anything. And there still isn't. That turned out to be the best thing ever, because that's what the audience embraced. They loved the fact that this is, two guys with not a lot of money, and this is really what happens when you try to do stuff with old cars.
And I'm assuming this is all done in addition to your normal day job of running Hot Rod Magazine.
It's changed quite a bit over the last year or so. But those first 3 years, David and I were both working on Hot Rod Magazine. He was the editor. We were trying to publish magazines and do this, and it kicked our butts for a long time. It was one of those deals where living in LA, your commute is insane. I lived 33 miles from the office, but it was about an hour and 45-minute drive each way every day to work. So at the time, I didn't have any kids, and I had a very understanding wife, and I'd work all week, and I'd be like, hey, I'm gone this weekend. We're driving to Texas or whatever, and trust me, this will pay off eventually. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think this is something good we should do. And so we stuck with it over the years, and it's grown to the point now where David is no longer the editor of the magazine, and I no longer work on the magazine on a day-to-day basis. I just contribute stuff when I have time, and Roadkill is pretty much my job now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so utterly insane, because even today, the show is still small enough where there's not a lot of chefs in this kitchen. So we don't have people telling us, you have to do this on this next trip. We're still sitting there texting each other going, dude, I just found this car on Craigslist. What if we drove to Mexico? That's still what's happening, which is awesome.
I'm assuming that, this has been years now, so it's no longer a YouTube-funded thing. Is it now, business-wise, a functioning kind of TV show? Is it more function like ad space and things like that?
Yeah, so the YouTube deal, I think, lasted 2 years, and then, for the first 2 years, I think YouTube owned the content, and we weren't selling ads against it or anything like that. YouTube just paid us to make it. And then after 2 years, I believe that deal ended, and now it's on us to fund it, which is why now you'll see companies like Dodge or Diesel Board sponsoring the show. And it's paying for itself. I don't think anyone's getting rich off of it yet, because it's kind of a hard sell for companies. When you tell a company, hey, these two idiots are going to go to a junkyard and buy a Barracuda, and then they're going to try to drag race it 3 days later, and they don't know if the car runs because they've never seen it, and we don't know if we can use your parts or not. We'll try. Maybe it makes the edit, maybe it doesn't. You want to sponsor the show?
We can guarantee you nothing.
Yeah, we can guarantee you nothing other than, at this point in the game, you can guarantee an audience, which is great. The audience, especially over the last 6 months, something's happened, and I can't explain what it is, but now when we put an episode up, within the first 3 days, it'll have 500,000 views, which is just insane. And under a month, it'll have over 1 million. And like you said earlier, it's kids, which is just fantastic, because when I went to work at Hot Rod Magazine, that was right before the economy went in the toilet. And even then, we were noticing, sales were falling off for print media. And it wasn't a surprise, but we were also sitting there around tables going, the Hot Rod audience is getting older. The people that can afford a, first-gen Camaro, those guys are not getting any younger. Where are we going to find new customers? And Roadkill, I think, has been an excellent bridge for that, because most of the people I meet in real life that come up to me and shake my hand and say, hey, I love your show, these are kids, which is just fantastic.
And they relate to it. This is actually one of my questions for you, and you've answered this a little bit. I'm curious if it's changed in the last year. So I think one of the things that kids like is how playful it seems, but is there a script or a plan of some? There has to be some type of plan just from the camera positions and stunts you're doing. How much of it is outlined versus scripted?
Oh, none of it. It has got to be, I think, the most frustrating show for any editor or videographer to work on, because there's nothing more than a vague idea. Freiburger and I will find a car that interests us or an event that interests us or destination and go, okay, we want to go there. We have this many days. We'll use this car. And we all show up and they just start rolling, and whatever happens, happens. So there's no script. We miss a lot of stuff. There's famous stuff from this show that's not on film, but people know about it because afterwards we have to turn to the camera and go, okay, you just missed us crashing a Gremlin, flat-towing a Prius through the desert. We did a 180-degree spin off the highway, blew all 4 tires, and we're okay. But you don't get to see that because the camera's not rolling, because before that, we were driving for 3 hours on a boring highway, and we just didn't have the cameras on.
Right.
So the beauty and the horror of the show is there is no script, which makes it really costly and time-consuming to produce because they roll a lot of footage because they just don't know what's going to happen. And Freiburger and I, we're not actors, and so we'll be driving along in a car and just start BSing about cars, and we're not thinking about it. It just happens, and maybe there's some gold there, except the camera's not rolling. Or we'll be driving along, and the guy on the radio, the director, will call us and go, hey, can you film something here? We don't think we've got enough footage so far for this episode. And we'll just be sitting there going, I don't know what we're going to say. We're not in the mood. We're not, it's not natural. So a long-winded answer, I guess. No, there's no script, and that's probably why the show works.
Is the company that does the video and editing, is that all part of Hot Rod or 10 as well? Or is that a separate TV company? No,
it's owned by 10, and 10 had purchased a company called Mind Over Eye a few years ago, which was a production company that specializes in CGI, augmented reality, and they do amazing graphics and all these things, and they've got some really talented editors and filmers there. So they produce it. It's all done in-house, and Roadkill is really nothing more than two people with cameras that leave with us on a trip, and oftentimes one of those guys holding the camera was the same guy editing the show when he got home. And, he'd have a few weeks to do it and put it up on YouTube.
How long does it take to film it versus edit it?
The filming goes much faster because we're on the road a minimum of 3 days, a maximum usually 7, because that's kind of the only time we can dedicate to it. And then we come home, and that poor editor's got to ingest all of that footage, and there's a ton of it, and it'll take days to ingest all of the footage into a computer. And then they've got to go through all of it, and these days we have a separate editor who's not with us on the shoot. So we try to keep notes of what happened, which is fairly impossible. And the poor guy's got to watch everything to try to find out where those good moments are. And then he's got to quickly edit it, and we've got to upload it. So that sounds like a long time, and a lot of people are asking, why don't you do more? The honest to God truth is there isn't time to do more. We're literally finishing these episodes the day of, if not the day before, they go up on YouTube.
Yeah. Now that you've kind of described how the sausage is made, I mean, I don't know, unless you change the process significantly, it's not possible to pump out more
really,
shows.
The only way to speed it up is to give it a script, and then you kill the soul of the show. Nobody wants that. The best example of this is we did an episode where we drove to, Wichita, Kansas, in a Buick station wagon with no windows. And there's about, 1 or 2 minutes of that episode that shows us installing an MSD atomic EFI system on that wagon. Mm-hmm. Well, that install happened in a parking lot on a 20-degree day, and it took about 8 hours. It's only 2 minutes of the episode. So those guys were rolling for 8 hours while we're freezing trying to do the installation. And it's 2 minutes of the episode, but somebody at home had to watch 8 hours of that footage or more trying to figure out
important parts.
What's going to go in the episode.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite episode? I do, but I'm curious if you have one.
I don't know. I have favorite experiences. As far as favorite episode, I don't know if I have a favorite. I like a lot of them. I got ones that I don't like.
Which ones don't you like?
My least favorite episode, and it's not the episode itself, it's just the experience, was where we went lemons racing, and the engine seized up like 20 minutes into the lemons race, and I didn't get to race. I stayed up like for 3 days with almost no sleep, prepping the car for it, and then it died, and that just pissed me off.
I can understand that.
So that's probably my least favorite episode, not because I think the episode is horrible, it's just the experience of working that hard for nothing, know?
The one that I like the most, and it's only because it's a nod to my childhood, but when you guys got to go run that Charger at Dirtfish, that one, and man, it was everything, because the dirt was flying, the mud was slinging, water was going, and camera shots were picking up like the roof line of the Charger, and it just looked like, oh my gosh, they're driving the General Lee like balls out. And it just looked like the best experience of your life. That's my favorite, hands down.
Oh, mine too. That's it right there. That is hands down the most fun I've ever had driving a car anywhere at any time in my life. And I've done some pretty cool stuff. Mm-hmm. Nothing will ever top that. And it's because, as fun as that was, I grew up watching the Dukes of Hazzard and Knight Rider and the A-Team and all those awesome 80s TV shows where cars were, really big characters in them. And I've always wanted a Charger. I've never had one, and someday I will, but I don't know when. So that was the time that I got to pretend I was going with Duke, and, and I was getting chased by Roscoe. I mean, it was epic. Epic.
What was it truly like? So I know of Dirtfish, the school. It's a very impressive school. I know a lot of professionals go there for training, but the Charger you ran, I mean, was it, I assume it was stuck in second gear and was a sick car half of the time. Did it drive okay?
What's funny is the car, like you said, it was stuck in second gear, which sounds like, oh, that's not fun. No, it was perfect. It was so amazing because that 440 came out of a motorhome, so it was nothing to write home about, which meant that your foot could be on the floor the entire time, which is very liberating. And because the car was stuck in second gear, when you came into a corner and you lifted off the gas, the back tires immediately locked up and the car went sideways. So you really didn't need brakes. So it became a complete exercise of driving with the throttle. It was so amazing. You come into a corner, lift, the car goes sideways, and you go right back on the gas and drift the entire place. It was just, let's put it this way, the car is getting a Hellcat motor right now.
Oh, really?
And it probably will not be as fun as it was before because it will be completely uncontrollable. Whereas before, it was just, the right amount of power for Dirtfish and stuck in second gear was perfect.
Did you get more runs than you got on camera, or was what you saw on camera what you got?
No, there's the downside of Roadkill right there. What you see on camera is the entire length of my driving. and it's solely because we don't have a big budget. We don't have a lot of time. There's only one car, and if we break it, you'll see it, but we won't have as much fun. Mm-hmm. And so, Dirtfish is expensive to rent. So we had it for one day. And by the time you show up and they walk the course with you, and by the time you design a course and the water truck comes out and the camera guys get set up, and the day's over. And so at the end of the day, at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, that's when we started driving the course. And there was a real danger of running into a tree. And so I got, I think, 1 lap or 2 laps in the Subaru, and I think I got 1 lap in the Charger. And that was it. It was over with. And so the downside of Roadkill is you're never at your best. The tires are never warm. You never get to see the course for very long. And it's just go out there and drive and, try to kill yourself.
It sure looks fun. And, all the episodes have great moments. And I have several that I really, really like. Just because of my age and my childhood, that was probably the one I liked the most. And like you, I'd like a Charger someday. Career-wise, you no longer live in Southern California. And I know that when you moved, it got a lot of people's interest up. A lot of people were wondering, are you leaving Hot Rod? Are you leaving Roadkill? Are you changing gears in life here? And none of that was true. But you work for a Southern California company, yet you don't live there anymore.
It's funny. It's no matter how many times, especially on social media, you say, no, I haven't quit. People still think you quit. Because
clearly you quit.
The benefits of the airplane, the internet, and cell phones mean, I can still do this job. Because we travel a lot for Roadkill shoots. They usually start out somewhere not in Southern California. So it doesn't make a difference if I'm leaving from my home in Georgia or leaving from a hotel room in L.A. Mm-hmm. So I've been fortunate enough that when the time came and I told them I needed to move, they probably weren't happy about it, but they understood we could make it work.
What was the need to move?
The majority of my family live here. My father's not doing well. I lived in California the last, 15 years since I graduated college, and I think I can count on one hand the number of family dinners I've had in that time. Mm-hmm. And it was just time to go home and be with the family. I got 2 little boys that I didn't necessarily want to raise in Southern California in an apartment because it's very expensive there. We just decided we packed everything into moving trucks and car trailers and just drove out.
So this was a purely personal thing, and your job at this point. I mean, I work in an automotive industry, and I live in the middle of Iowa. I understand how the internet and an airplane can make a lot of things possible. That was totally your reason, that you just wanted to go somewhere else and raise your kids in a different spot. That's it.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, I was fully prepared for them to fire me.
Really?
I would have understood it, and it wasn't going to stop me. I was going. It's just the way it was. And I've been extremely fortunate to still be doing Roadkill and contributing to Hot Rod, from Georgia.
That's amazing, because I wasn't expecting you to say that. I was expecting you to say they acquiesced and said, we'll make Roadkill work. And I didn't know you went in saying, I'm leaving. Hopefully we can continue to do Roadkill later.
Yeah, I basically, there was never going to be an ultimatum, because it's just not how I roll. I called up Freiburger and I said, hey, I've got to go and I can't stay, and I'm going to leave in 3 months. I tried not to, screw them and say I'm leaving tomorrow, but it was just a culmination of things that just came together, and I ran out of reasons to stay. My shop lease was up, my apartment lease was up, and all signs were just saying, okay, that's the time you should go. And so I got lucky. I got very lucky.
For people looking to get into the automotive business, whether that's media or parts creation or builds or something totally different, is there any advice you might have? And I'm asking this not from like a crystal ball forecast, but more from a personal one. You enjoy what you do very much. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons to do anything, is to enjoy it. Is there any advice you'd have for people who are looking to get into the industry, but they want to enjoy it, but they still have to put food on the table? There still has to be that practical component. Is there anything to tell them?
Oh, yeah. That's the easy part. I've figured this out over the last few years. It doesn't matter the industry you want to be in. This one is difficult to get into. It is. But it's not difficult for people that are great at what they do. So my first piece of advice is pick something you want to do and be better than everyone else at it. And it doesn't matter where you live. Let's take fabricating, for example. You could live in Alaska, but if you can bend and TIG weld tube better than everyone else, people are going to find you, especially with the internet. If you have an Instagram account and you can weld these days, you've got customers. So just pick something you want to do. You want to restore cars, fabricate, whatever it is, just kick ass at it. Don't do it the way I did it. Don't just teach yourself. Go to school for it. You want to be a welder? Go to a trade school, learn to weld, and then just practice. Practice, practice, practice. Because if you are truly great at something, people will find you. You will always have a career. In my case, I don't think it's possible to tell people how to do what I'm doing, because what I'm doing came by accident. I grew up tearing cars apart and rebuilding them. I went to school for photography and writing, and now I'm standing in front of a camera, not writing, not taking pictures. And honestly, what we do on Roadkill is the opposite of what I do in my home garage. I would never build a car the way we do on Roadkill, just because, well, A, I've got too much pride, and B, it's not safe. Roadkill is, I'm scratching my inner 14-year-old self basically on Roadkill, doing things that in real life, it's not a good idea to, hold things together with zip ties when you're trying to go fast.
Overall, no.
The beauty of Roadkill, though, is this is what would happen. This is what you would do if you were in my situation. If you were stranded on the side of the road and you only had 2 days to get where you're going and you're out of money, you will MacGyver your way there. You will find a way to do it, and it will be fun because it will be an adventure. So there's Roadkill.
Once you know what you want to do, regardless of market and your location, just be really, really great at it. And then the Instagram thing, I'm reading this book. It's called Smart Cuts. The Instagram piece is what they would call a mass connector. That's where the internet can come in really, really well right now, because, it used to be that if you were in Alaska, you could really only serve people in Alaska that knew you. And now that's not the case. You can connect to tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people now, just because of Instagram, or maybe a YouTube channel or something like that, or a podcast show. Podcast is hard to see, but all of it works. All of it works really well. And I'm glad you're enjoying life, and I'm glad you're in a really great spot. Congrats to you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, I got no complaints. Definitely not. Yeah, the internet is fantastic for that. Because I know guys that are on Instagram that have made careers just because of what they're doing on Instagram. They're not on YouTube. They're not advertising. They don't have websites. Just an Instagram account. and they've got people lined up, waiting for their widgets, whether it be knives or furniture or, headers for an Evo. It's
Really?
a really powerful tool.
I've never used Instagram a ton. Maybe it's my age. I don't know how old you are, but I'm just turned 40. The first social media platform to really hit mainstream was probably the one I still use the most, which is Facebook.
I'm on Facebook, but I got to be honest, these days I'm turned off on it because social media for me a lot of the time is an escape. I don't want to read about politics, and I don't want to all the time, every time on my feed, just see people complaining about things. And so the beauty of Instagram is it's just photos and short videos, and you're not inundated with negativity, depending on who you follow. And so I'm probably more on Instagram than I am anything else. Everything I put on Instagram pushes to Twitter and then pushes to Facebook. And so I still use those other outlets, but Instagram's probably my favorite right now.
You done any Periscope?
Yeah, we've done that quite a bit on Roadkill during shoots. I haven't done much of it outside of Roadkill just because if I'm not doing Roadkill, I'm probably at home with my kids, and I don't necessarily want to show, the family and the house and where I live, to the world. So
yeah, probably a good idea.
So if I'm periscoping, it's probably during work hours.
Last question, and feel free to not address this one and we'll edit it out. But because of where you live and because of the times, and we mentioned Dukes of Hazzard, I live in the Midwest, and the Confederate battle flag here, when I grew up, it was just a thing on the top of the car. That's really all it meant to me. And I know it means different things now, but what is the climate like in Georgia right now? Is it any different because of kind of like the recent actions regarding the flag and the car and the TV show and things like that?
Well, I've only been in Georgia for a few months now, so I'm probably not the most educated person with regards to
may not be that
the
different.
number of flags we're flying, 2 weeks ago versus now. But it's definitely disappointing in general, just because the media for sure has taken a car that I just love, and taken it, and now I'm sitting there going, God, someday I'm still going to get this car. I am. But am I going to be ashamed to drive it around? First of all, there's no way. I mean, if anyone's ever seen the Dukes of Hazzard, that was probably one of the most wholesome shows on the planet. Mm-hmm. And Robert E. Lee and that flag really weren't that much of a fixture of the show. So, I don't know. The whole thing bums me out.
It is. The whole thing is just a terrible thing. And it really all got sparked and reignited by a pretty bad guy who did some bad things and identified himself with that flag. I wish he would have held up some other flag sometimes, but or just not done it in the first place. That would have been better. But my personal take on it, and a few years ago this came up. I still buy those toys for myself and for my kids. And if you noticed, if you go by a generally model, you wouldn't see a picture of the flag on the roof. But if you open the box, the flag was inside, just like it always was. Warner Brothers has been cashing in on royalties on that likeness for a long time. I find it hard to believe that they're going to give that up just for politically correct, altruistic means. I don't think they're that good. I think they'll find another way.
Who knows, though? I mean, if Warner Brothers is based in Hollywood, and Hollywood is really connected to the federal government, if Obama calls a Warner Brothers honcho, and he has that capability because they dine during election years. They have, benefits and whatnot. You never know what they might do. Interesting scenario. And like I said, one that bums me out because what's next? If it's a toy on a shelf or a car on a TV show, what's the next thing that someone's going to be offended by that, no one else can enjoy?
Well, we can go on and on about that. Mike, what's your best way for people to follow you outside of Roadkill? Would it be your Instagram account?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Finnegan999. Social media, other outlets like Facebook, Mike Finnegan. I think on Twitter, I'm Mike Finnegan999. It's pretty easy to find me, or you'll find the musician Mike Finnegan. We're both out there.
Okay. Appreciate
that name, you're going to get one.
I did find him. Well, appreciate it, Mike.
Well, hi there. It's Bernie, your producer of the Kibbe and Finnegan Show. And thanks for joining us. And maybe you noticed or heard from the front that Rob had to kind of piecemeal this show together because of circumstances. You know, in the industry, we have a term for this, and it's called, in air quotes, of course, mailing it in. But I'm not here to judge. I'm here to put together the program and make sure that you're entertained for the duration of the podcast. Hopefully, we have done that today. Also, that means that there are no show clips today since there was no real show review from the Dukes of Hazzard or another movie, but fear not, I, being the keeper of the archives, found something you might be very interested in. They say to live your life like the microphones are on, and possibly this should have been applied when Kibbe and Finnegan had the mics on and the tape was rolling. It's a commercial. It is a plea to buy t-shirts. I found it. I'm going to play it. I hope you enjoy it.
Dudes, Kibbe and Finnegan Show now has its own t-shirt, and it's awesome. Can't wait to wear this. What do you think, Kibbe?
What's it about? Does it feature a show logo and a car jumping?
Yes, it does. And it's a very recognizable car. Can't say what it is, because we don't want to get sued. But you'll know what it is when you buy the shirt.
You might say it's a car.
I'm making general statements here. Yes, I am. But I'm not going to lead you any place you don't want to go.
No. If you go to kfshowshirts.com, I'll bet you could even find this generally nice shirt that leads people down the path of greatness.
Yes.
Yes.
And hang time.
Amen. KFShowShirts.
Looks good under a flannel shirt and blue jeans.
Oh, right. Okay. I see what we're doing here. Yes. Also tan shirts.
Yeehaw! Buy our shirts.